mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it alive.
It's time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. And I'm going to be unpacking what I think is an interesting topic with Dr. Avrum Weiss. He's an author and he's a psychologist. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay. Why do men and women keep having the same argument over and over? Why?
They keep having the same argument over and over because they're actually, unbeknownst to them, working at cross purposes. And what women are typically working towards in an argument is making more connection, getting closer, feeling more intimate with their partner, which, unbeknownst to them, is often very intimidating to men. And so men are often working to protect themselves from what seems intimidating or intrusive to them. So you end up with this distancer pursuer or pursuer distancer pattern. As women make what to them seems like an effort to connect, it's experienced by men as an indictment that they're doing something wrong, as criticism. So they get defensive and withdraw. Now here's a woman who's trying to connect, and the person she's trying to connecting with is withdrawing. So what's the natural instinct is to pursue, is to escalate, is to become more animated, more emotional, more intimidating to men. So they withdraw further. So you have this pattern, rinse, lather, repeat, and neither side really understands. They're both puzzled by each other, and neither one of them really understands why it's not going anywhere. Why do we keep having the same fight?
Okay. All right. So so women are looking to connect and men are looking to.
Men feel frightened and intimidated. So men are socialized to believe that they are responsible for your happiness. So if you're unhappy, men often experience that as an indictment, as a failure. Even if you're not unhappy with me, if you say, I just really am not loving our house anymore. It's just really not doing it for me. Instead of joining with his wife and feeling like, okay, well, maybe this isn't, he would take that as an indictment. You picked the wrong house. You don't make enough money for us to afford a nicer house, even though that's not where she's coming from. He's trained to feel responsible. So he hears it as a criticism, and she's like, I'm not being critical of you. She has difficulty. It's hard for women to imagine the way men are really hearing things.
All right. So they're on two different spectrums, basically.
Yeah.
All right. How then is that common ground found?
Well, it's found through, as we could say about the world in general, it's found through understanding. It's found through being able to hear someone speak in the voice they're speaking in, not the filter of our own ears. So it requires sort of bracketing, setting aside what you think the other person is saying in order to be able to, I went to graduate school for 7 years to learn how to listen. We think that listening is just a simple thing, but it's taken me 40 or 50 years to learn how to listen. It's actually, it's not an easy thing to do because you have to put aside all of your own biases and your own prejudices in order to be able. So one of the ways you're really listening to someone is when you keep being surprised. You're like, oh, I didn't know that's what you think, or I didn't know that's how you are. So, how few conversations do we have? For me, I love getting in Ubers because it's one of the few chances I get to talk with somebody who differs politically from me. Most of the time, people won't talk to you, and they certainly don't listen. But some reason Uber drivers are willing to tell you what they think. So to me, that's a rare opportunity.
Okay. So if it is that it is how males and females are socialized, and that's not going to change, is this is just a never-ending cycle that we just have to learn to live with it?
Until we change how we socialize men and women, which I think there's a lot in the news now about how men are doing which is not very well by most measures.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot being written about the election and how much that has to do with disgruntled men and how they voted.
Ah.
So it's men don't live as long, they're incarcerated more, their economic prospects are dropping by any measure. You look in universities and graduate schools, it's overwhelmingly women. You
Mm-hmm.
look at most professions other than business, it's over. So men are losing their position and they don't like it. If I were more accurate, I would say primarily I'm talking about white men, but not
Mm-hmm.
exclusively. And there's a lot of pushback from them not liking it. The shooter who just shot the CEO of United Healthcare,
Yeah.
another angry, disgruntled white man.
Hmm. What then, or what would you then recommend for those who are parents, those who plan to be parents, to literally then change this?
Well, I think it's really hard to raise children without gender expectations. So we
Okay.
have a lot of data that parents with kids as young as a few months old treat the boys differently than the
Mm-hmm.
girls.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with a concerted effort, you can sort of be more neutral about it. So, for example, the classic story is, the kids are out in the playground and the boy falls down and looks up at his mommy. He's looking for a cue. Mom,
Mm-hmm.
how am
Mm-hmm.
I supposed to handle this? And if
Mm-hmm.
mom goes, oh no, the boy's going to start crying. And then, but if the boy falls down and he looks up at his dad and his dad goes, go ahead, you're fine. Kid will get up and
Mm-hmm.
on. So they're very attuned to us and they're very attuned to our expectations. So I have grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
and if they love to play dress up. And if you look in their dress up place, you will see traditionally masculine costumes and you will see ballerina costumes. And they're free to put on whatever costume they want. In a lot of homes, you would see just, lumberjack costumes or
Mm-hmm.
firefighter costumes for a boy.
Mm-hmm.
So their parents are making a conscious choice to not gender type them, but to leave them free to wear whatever costume they want to wear.
What sort of cultural implications do you think that would have, though?
My name is Dr. Avrum Weiss. We're talking today about why men and women keep having the same argument over and over. We'll take a break here.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors. Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-877-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Hello, my name is Nicky Mason, and I want to share with you my journey with Noreen Daly in my communication coaching sessions. As I went through the sessions with Noreen, I was able to recognize my strengths in communication. Some things I didn't recognize that I would do, she was able to unearth and allow me to recognize that these are some strengths that I had. I did have some weaknesses which I was challenged to overcome through research, reviewing other public speakers, and being able to sit before a camera and to speak to an audience, an invisible audience. It was fun, and as a coach, she was patient and she gave good feedback, and she was able to give me the insight into communication as to how to best use my skills, my natural communication strengths to be engaging as a speaker. And I would recommend anybody who seeks to become a more competent communicator to enroll in her program, reach out to her, and I believe you're going to enjoy the journey as much as I did. Thanks.
Langdo Language Institute was created to meet your language and communication needs. All of our packages were created just for you. We are passionate about language and dedicated to your success. We offer the CSEC English program, the Study Buddy program, the Get Ahead with English program, and the Business Communication program. Contact us at 767-285-0938 or email us at landolanguage@gmail.com, because the real question is, how can we help you?
Welcome back to our conversation about why men and women keep having the same argument over and over.
Do you
Well,
think? Mhm.
go ahead. No, finish
No, I'm
question.
just saying, do you think, in for example, I live in Jamaica, West Indian country, the expectations are gonna be, yes, there are some things that are universal, but what do you think what you just said? What sort of cultural implications that might have in my region?
Well, I think it's, I'm an optimist, but I think there's a lot of research to suggest that it's going to be positive, because if you look at the research on inclusivity,
Okay.
heterogeneous groups outperform homogeneous groups in almost any setting. The more diversity, so, the word diversity has become very freighted and political,
Yeah,
but if you just
yeah.
look at, if you have a group of all 30 to 50-year-old white men making decisions, and then you bring in people of color or women or people with different gender, the decision making of the group improves
Yeah.
every time. How could it not improve? If you just have a group of people who just see the world a single way, there's a lot that they're going to miss just because you don't know what you don't know. So we know that the more inclusive and the more heterogeneous our world is, the better decisions we make. So I'd like to think that as we less gender stereotyped and more inclusive, we'll make better decisions about things like when to go to war, how we treat the environment, how to treat people who have less than us. I would hope
Yeah.
that would be the outcome.
Yeah. There's some people though that think that once you mention the whole word of being inclusive or being diverse, it means that you're asking them to accept things or accept people that they don't necessarily want to. So how do you respond to something like that?
Well, I understand. I understand that I used to live in a neighborhood, and there was a public housing project right down the street, and my house got burglarized a number of times. Then they closed the public housing project, and my house didn't get burglarized anymore. Now, I understand people wanting to hold on to what they have. The problem is that wealth and economic opportunity are like water. It's going to seek its own level. So if you want to keep the water out of your house, you have to build a wall. You have to build a barrier. And then you always have to protect the barrier because the water is going to try to seek its own level. So you can try to protect yourself from other people who are different from you, but in the end, the tide's tide's coming in, and you're going to put a lot of effort into trying to keep it from coming in, and you're going to get wet in the end anyway. So you might as well take down the wall and figure out how to live with it. Because it's coming.
True. And I know there's some cynics who will listen and watch this and they will say, yeah, it's easy for you to say based on where you are, based on, whatever your situation
Well,
is.
I'm an older white man, so I would argue it's not. I'm one of the people who has the privilege. And so I would say, I could easily argue, leave me alone. I want to keep what I have, but that's not how I think about things. It works with age too.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really noteworthy about the last election was the age of the candidates and what a bad job we did transitioning to younger leadership, and a bad job we're doing transitioning. And again, I understand why people in position of power don't want to relinquish the power, but if you're invested in the country, you have to be thinking about where the young leaders are coming. Both parties have to be thinking about, well, I'm not going to live forever. I say to my kids all the time, I'm not going to live forever. Let's talk about it.
What's going to happen after? Yeah. But
You know, I would like to be prepared, and I'd like my family to be prepared, not act like I'm never going to die.
Hmm. Yeah. And painfully, some of us act as if that would be
Yeah,
so. Yeah,
yeah.
painfully,
But
painfully.
then you make a big mess. My mom was an attorney, and she died without a will, and it was a big mess that took me years to clean up. And I would have appreciated it if she had taken care of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As we're wrapping up, I'm literally gonna ask you the question and you just respond whatever your initial response is.
Sure.
Why do men and women keep having the same argument over and over?
Because of a profound misunderstanding. Because men expect women to think the way they do, and women expect men to think the way they do, instead of having the respect and the interest and the curiosity to listen and understand how someone else thinks in a way that's completely different than the way you think. Most of the worst arguments I've ever had with my wife, and by one of us going something like, "Oh, that's what you were thinking?" It might take us an hour or two to get there because we're upset, not listening to each other. But when you finally are able to listen, you're like, "Oh, no wonder you did that. I understand."
So at
Good
so
argument.
okay, so at the core of it, if you would listen more.
Yeah, what a number of couples are doing, which I think is
Mhm.
just lovely, is they buy my book and they read it a chapter at a time together. So they don't each read the whole thing. They just read chapter one and then they have a conversation about it. Then they read chapter two and they have a conversation about it. And in the conversation, they're each learning about each other. The book helps facilitate that conversation. So that's one very self-serving, obviously, but I think couples are, I make $1 a book, so I'm not like trying to get rich here. But couples tell me all the time that they learn so much about each other by reading it together.
Okay. Okay. Tell us about your book.
It's called Hidden in Plain Sight: How Men's Fears of Women Shape Their Intimate Relationships. You can find it on my website, which is avrumweissphd.com. You'll also find a mailing list there. I write regularly for Psychology Today, where I have 3 million views. And I write mostly about men and women, not entirely. My last article was called Learn How to Stop Compromising to Improve Your Relationship.
Interesting.
The example I give is, you like the bed firm and your wife likes the bed soft, so you buy a medium firmness mattress on which both of you are uncomfortable. That's what compromise gets you. Both of you have a bad night's sleep. Well, we have a sleep number bed where I can make my side soft and she can make her. So it's not a compromise. It's learning how to respect each and listen to each other's needs. So I write about things like that. If you sign up for the mailing list, you get a free ebook about relationships.
Thank you so much for sharing. Any final thoughts before you go?
Enjoy talking with you. I pride myself on responding to every email I get.
Okay.
So if you have questions, you're welcome to email me. If you don't get an answer, it means I didn't get your email because I do respond to every email.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Weiss. It was a
You're very
pleasure.
welcome. My pleasure. Good to talk to you.
This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly. Until next time.
Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives.